No girls at all?
Okay, I have it 6:45. We'll call this meeting to order. First up into closed session, be it resolved that the Montgomery County Board of Supervisors of Montgomery County, Virginia hereby enters into a closed meeting for the purpose of discussing the following, Section 2.2-3711. 1, discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of specific officers, appointees or employees of any public body. 1, Agency on Aging. 2, County Attorney Annual Evaluation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion
Second.
second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Fitchikowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Chair Blevins?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Into closed meeting. That's good. Do I have a motion to come out of closed meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Okay, just a second. Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Chair Blevins?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Certification of closed meeting. Whereas the Board of Supervisors of Montgomery County has conveyed a closed meeting on this date pursuant to the affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and whereas Section 2.2-3711 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Montgomery County, Virginia hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, 1, only public business matters lawfully exempt from the open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification resolution applies, and 2, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion conveying the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the board. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Chair Blevins?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Thank you. At this moment, I'd ask our County Administrator, Mr. Meadows, if you will lead us in a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance.
If you're able, please rise for a moment of silence. And let's also remember what this day represents 22 years ago. Also, once we're done with the moment of silence, I'll lead us in the pledge. Let us pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. All right, presentation, recognitions, and awards, Virginia Department of Transportation. I see Mr. Clark. Welcome.
Good evening. I'll go through a few of the maintenance things we've been up to. This is the height of our kind of summer season, so we're trying to machine a lot of the gravel roads when we can, when it's not too dry, put dust on when we can, and then deal with some of the heavy rains that have been localized these last couple weeks. Of course, there was the big one Saturday. If you were in Blacksburg, you saw a lot of it. We really didn't get a lot in a lot of other areas. Some people in Pilot said they didn't see anything at all, but boy, I'm from Blacksburg for everybody. And really the week before we had a strange little storm come through. I think it was Thursday afternoon with some hail and stuff like that. Again, not a lot of widespread damage, but trees here and there. There was one on Ellett Road that I happened to see coming back. So we've also been doing some patching. Did some patching on Oil Well and Merrimack, some on Catawba, some pipe replacements up Allegheny Springs, Catawba Road. Did some brush cutting, really brush cutting kind of everywhere, all around. Not a great number of roads, but we're hitting a lot of the spots. So we got some on Mount Pleasant, Merrimack, Plum Creek, Centennial, Meadow Creek, Mount Tabor, Chestnut Ridge. That's kind of all over the county right there. And we were also began working on the 6-year plan project. It's on the plan for this summer. It's a short section, so it's Won't take a lot of time. We're doing it with a lot of VDOT crews. It's not put out to contract, and that's that middle section of Craig Mountain Road that was not paved. We did some service treatment a little further on, about a half mile of it. This is a third of a mile gap that we're catching up this year. So, and that's all. That's all I got.
Very good. We'll go around the room for supervisors. We'll start off with Supervisor Shepherd.
Okay. How are you?
I'm doing good.
I noticed you redid the sign on Sterling Drive, the street sign.
They did get that? Okay, good. Yeah.
Have you had a chance to drive down that road?
I have, and I'm starting to wonder whether, it's got that sort of false cul-de-sac there, but it does go on, and
Right.
it goes to the end.
Yeah.
It's not it's not like it's in seriously bad shape. It's got some cracks that actually some grass is kind of growing up through it.
Yeah, I drove down it too the other day, and that was my thought, but it probably needs to be surface treated again.
Yeah,
Just
that would
to
be,
seal it.
yeah, that would be or like a slurry or something like that.
How do we go about getting that on the schedule?
We can try to get that on the schedule. We can do some, we might be able to do some surface treatment ourselves if we can't get we have to make up our schedule so far in advance that I don't know if we can get it on a contract for a while. But
Okay.
I'll see if we can do some of that ourselves.
All right, and then I had another complaint about brush on McCoy Road. And there's some places it's pretty bad. I think hanging over the guardrail, it's pretty close to the road. And then some places like down there next to Whitethorn Road, it's the trees overtake the road. I mean, they're not hitting anything, but they're shading. I mean, it's a lot of shade,
McCoy at
Whitethorn.
Whitethorn, yeah, Whitethorn.
Going up the hill there.
Yeah.
That's all I got. Thank you.
Okay.
Supervisor Fidzikowski.
I really don't have anything outstanding that I haven't already mentioned to you, but I did see that machine on up at the end of Mount Pleasant had the articulated arm. Is that something new that you all have gotten?
We've had it. We sometimes share it between counties. It breaks down a lot, but just because it gets into some pretty rough stuff sometimes. But it's a really great piece of equipment.
Yeah, I was going to say that you can reach out there and just cut the brush right back.
Yeah,
and not have to have
it
the
looks a
crew.
little rough once you've gone through, but it tends to kind of grow back a little bit, so it doesn't look like a tornado just came through.
Oh, it'll grow back plenty fast.
yeah,
I'm sure.
unfortunately, way too fast.
Yeah, and I appreciate all the hard work that y'all did during all that rain, because I'm sure you were all busy. I heard it on the scanner trees down everywhere.
Yeah,
so
there's quite a bit.
Crews did a great job.
Thanks.
Supervisor King.
Just have a couple of things. Me and you've been talking about the speed limit on Route 8 right past the Shell station. Could you just kind of explain to the citizens out there why they turned that part down?
Yeah, I might save that for next time and do that because I want to I'll get the actual speed study that gives, because they did look at it and they got the reasoning in there. They look at kind of long sections, and in general, it's a less populated section south of Reiner. I know we could look at a more specific spot within a half a mile of there, and they've even been reluctant to change that. And that would be different reasoning for that than for the entire stretch. Until you start going down towards the river, it's a,
Well, just my concerns and theirs, that stretch of Route 8 is really curvy.
It's definitely from down towards the river and outside of Reiner.
Right. All right, I appreciate it. And one more thing, we talked about here a couple months ago about doing a study on Route 8 and Union Valley Road, but we didn't want to start it till after school started so we could get the see what we can't do.
Yeah, I'll mention that to traffic engineering to see if there's a.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll talk with you and get some specifics on that too. I'll give you a call.
All right, thank you.
Supervisor DeMonts.
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thanks.
Vice Chair Biggs.
Thank you for being here. The only thing I wondered is if you had any update on the work on 81. We were looking at when that might.
Did I put that? No, I did not have that. it's going to be still several years on the section that's being worked on now, and then there's going to be incremental sections all the way up to getting about halfway between, close to the 116 mile marker, which is where Franklin Street goes over. So they've got a planned schedule that kind of they overlap. They're long projects. They're very several years in there. That doesn't mean it's always going to be full on under construction during that. That's start of contract to end of contract.
Yeah.
And right now there's an ad out for public comment on the section north up by exit 150 area. There's if you've seen the paper, they're looking for comments on that right now.
Okay. Thank you, David.
Thank you for being here tonight, David. I don't have, this is kind of outside of Montgomery, but goes along with Interstate 81. I see with the General Assembly, with their amended budget, did we get money back in on 81? I know that was looking particularly at the projects at 143 to 150.
No, I'm not sure how that part of
I
it
think I
works.
saw something that said that did not get put in. I won't.
Did not.
There was something in VACO's information they sent out, I think, that said that did not get added back.
Okay. And the question is because eventually for the 116 in Montgomery County, if there's a delay in that project and funding, obviously I can see how that would trickle down
Yeah.
for funding for us as
Yeah,
well.
we're doing planning for all of it, but there is still the need for funding to be there before contracts are let. We can do a lot of design and stuff, but until there's funding for the construction, and there's plan for it, but that all depends on the expected stream of financing.
Right. Okay, very good. And that's one thing that I think will probably still remain on our legislative priorities is interstate improvement to Interstate 81s.
And there'll be updates on that through the MPO as well.
Okay.
So they always keep their pulse on that.
Okay. Any other follow-ups with board members? As always, Mr. Clark, thank you. We appreciate your service. Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
All right, next up, public hearing. We have a rezoning request. And Mr. Sanders, hi. Good afternoon.
All right. Good evening, Madam Chair, board members. Thank you for having me this evening. We do have a request for rezoning this evening for you to consider. It is a request to actually downzone a parcel from rural residential with proffered conditions to A1 agricultural. And the total acreage on that rezoning request is 122.6 acres. Just to orient you, the parcel is located in the eastern portion of the county near the Roanoke interchange. It's actually located off of Bradshaw Road, which intersects with North Fork Road. Here's an aerial image of the property. Just to sort of orient you, the power lines actually run right along the property boundary. You'll see that in some of the photographs that I'll share with you later. I also want to point out that there is a 50-foot wide right-of-way that connects the parcel down to Bradshaw Road, and I'll show you photos of that here in a moment as well. But again, just to orient you, Bradshaw is here and intersects with North Fork that goes back to the 81 interchange. Your zoning map is on the right. You can see the parcel is currently zoned rural residential with proffered conditions, as is the adjacent parcel. This was part of a larger rezoning that was done back in 2008. We do have some R2 residential zoned parcels here, but the majority of the surrounding area is also zoned A1 agricultural. So again, as I mentioned, back in 2008, this parcel and the adjacent parcel were rezoned to rural residential with this concept plan tied to the rezoning through a proffered condition. That rezoning was done to allow a 67-lot single-family subdivision that was approved at the time. That subdivision, however, was never developed, and when the current owners purchased the property last year, they were aware of the rural residential zoning classification. However, they were not aware of that proffered condition that tied their development to that concept plan. So we received an application for a family subdivision of 3 lots. During our staff review of that subdivision plat, we discovered those proffered conditions that would prevent that plat from being approved. We reached out to the applicants and their engineer and have worked with them. They determined that the A1 zoning classification was most in line with their intent for the property, to do that family subdivision and to use it for agricultural purposes. And then the remainder of the property would stay forested. So here are some site images. Again, there's that 50-foot right-of-way that I mentioned that connects the parcel down to Bradshaw Road. You can see it goes up here. And again, you can see just how heavily wooded that parcel really is. This is a view looking back to Bradshaw Road for that intersection. Again, the proposal is for a 3-lot family subdivision, so it would be substantially less traffic than what was approved in the 2008 rezoning. This is Bradshaw Road looking north and then looking back toward North Fork Road. Again, to orient you, this is around where the Mountain Valley Pipeline crosses over Bradshaw Road. And again, there are some power lines there in the area as well. So this is the existing access road that actually goes up into the site. You can see that it is an unpaved road. There are some cutoffs at various points on that access road. This one is located toward the front of the property, and this is the area that the applicant is looking to develop as the family subdivision, again, to deal with that terrain and how heavily forested the area is. Really beautiful images from the drone. Again, you can see those power lines that sort of follow that property boundary, but again, just how much this parcel is forested is really going to limit the development potential, and again, why the applicants are proposing to develop the lots here toward the front of the property. This is an image of that family subdivision plat that was submitted to us. To orient you, this is that 50-foot right-of-way, and then you'll see that there are driveways that connect to that right-of-way to service the 3 parcels that are being proposed. So in evaluating the impacts, that existing entrance that I pointed out along Bradshaw Road will be utilized to service those 3 lots. They will share a 20-foot wide right-of-way to service the 3 parcels. Within the Montgomery County Code and the Code of Virginia, we do allow a shared access easement for family subdivisions, which is a bit different than you see in normal subdivisions. VDOT at the time of plat review will evaluate that entrance and the access easement to ensure compliance. In terms of infrastructure, the lots will be served by private well and septic, as no public utilities are available in the area. And again, that will be a dramatically lower use of well and septic needs than if that 67-lot subdivision had been constructed. As part of that plat review process, VDH will review those well and septic locations for compliance with their regulations. It does not lie within a FEMA-designated flood zone. And again, as part of plat review, Environmental Services looks at all the stormwater and erosion and sediment control measures as part of their evaluation. The parcel is located in an area designated as rural in the comprehensive plan. These are areas that are traditionally not served by public utilities and are meant for very low density rural residential and agricultural uses. There's your policy goal there, again, just reiterating that rural residential character that is sought in this particular comprehensive plan area. So in our analysis of the application, it does return the parcel back to its previous zoning designation that it held prior to 2008. It utilizes private infrastructure, so places no burden on the public system. The limited scale of development that's being proposed for the family subdivision is in alignment with both the A1 zoning district and the comprehensive plan designation as rural. There are minimal traffic impacts that are anticipated. And again, all of the agencies will be reviewing the plat if the rezoning is approved to ensure that we're in conformance with all their regulations. The Planning Commission held their public hearing on August the 16th. We did have one individual that spoke at the hearing. He was seeking additional information about the application, but when provided that, did not oppose the rezoning request. The Planning Commission did recommend approval of the rezoning 7-0 with 2 absences. We have notified all the adjacent property owners in alignment with code. A public hearing sign was placed on the property and ads run in the News Messenger. We did get 1 phone call after the sign was posted, as often happens, someone just seeking more information about what was the sign about. Once they were told about the request, they were in full support. We may, however, have others this evening that are here to speak at the public hearing. So with that, I will take your questions. We do have Mr. Meredith here, the agent for the applicants, if you have any questions for him.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Sanders. We'll start off with the supervisors. Supervisor Fidzikowski.
I don't actually have any questions on this one. It looks pretty cut and dry to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor King? Supervisor Demott?
I appreciate the presentation. I don't have any questions.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Supervisor Shepherd?
No questions.
Vice Chair Biggs?
I don't have a question, but I will say that I'm much more comfortable with the proposal than what we originally passed way back when, because I was always worried about that.
And Justin, I have no questions either. Thank you. Great presentation and great, we love that drone that can give us a visual.
We're so thankful for Jennifer and her team and PIO for working with us. Becky Hertling goes out with us on all of these, works us into her schedule, and it really does change what we can show you all, and I think it really helps the Planning Commission as well.
Absolutely.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate that. Thank you. Okay. No further questions from the board. We will open up this public hearing, rezoning. The first person I have on the list is Mr. Doug Meredith.
I'm only available if you have questions.
Okay, very good.
I have nothing to say.
All right. I do not have anyone else signed up for the public hearing, but if any citizen would like to come forward to address the board on this matter, you have 4 minutes to do so. You may come forward at this time. Seeing no one come forward, we will close this public hearing. All right. Guideline for public address. The Board of Supervisors allows citizens to present comments on issues deserving of our attention during public address at each meeting. Each person speaking as an individual or a representative will have 4 minutes, 4 minutes to address the board. All comments must be directed to the chair or other supervisors from the speaker's lectern at the front of the room. You'll begin by stating your name and address. Debate between speakers and members of the audience will not be allowed. Speakers may leave any written statements or comments for the supervisors with the board clerk. Speakers will be judged out of order should the speaker engage in any personal attacks, use of profanity, abusive language, or debate with the audience and not address the supervisors. I don't have anyone signed up, but if any citizen would like to come forward, you have 4 minutes. Yes, sir. Come forward and state your name and your address, and you'll have 4 minutes to address the board.
Good evening. First of all, I'm not sure if I'm at the right meeting. It should be the county meeting or the town meeting, because I have a question that involves the intersection right across the street, the corner of Chinkopin and Roanoke. Could you help me on that?
That would be the town of Christiansburg.
Okay, so then I need to go to their meeting.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I believe they meet tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night?
They meet tomorrow night at Town Hall.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for being with us.
Okay.
Would anyone else like to come forward? Seeing no one come forward, we will close public address. Addendum.
No addendum this evening, Madam Chair.
Okay. Do I have a motion to move into work session?
Motion.
Second?
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Ms. Demott?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Chair Blevins?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Very good.
Board members, this evening we have Scott Woodrum with us. Scott, appreciate you being here. We wanted to provide an update to the board on several of the county capital improvement projects that are currently underway. There's been a lot of work going on, and it's been a while since we've been before you to give you an update. So Scott, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. We have 4 projects we want to bring to you tonight and update you on. The first one is the Blacksburg Library outdoor improvements. This project includes new space for children's programs and outdoor presentations. There'll be a new patio with built-in bench seating, a shading trellis, and new lighting. There'll be also a place for tiered outdoor seating and fencing to enclose the new outdoor area. There'll be power and data supplied to the area for presentations and things such as that. There'll be also alarmed gates at each end of the fence around the space for proper exiting of the outdoor area. The current schedule for this project, the A&E firm is working on construction plans for permit review. We anticipate advertising the project in November or December this year and mobilizing February or March. The length of construction is approximately 4 months, and would anticipate substantial completion in June 2024. The current estimate for the project is indicated in the CIP is $423,500. The next project we want to update you on is the Magistrate and Court Services Facility. The scope of this project includes 7,000 square feet of new office space and 3,800 square feet of a new sally port. The site plans and the building plans are currently under review by the town and by the third-party building plan reviewer. We anticipate advertising somewhere around October the 16th, with bids received middle of November. November the 16th is our goal, and award later this year and mobilize January or February. The length of construction is anticipated to be about a year and a half, and the current estimate for the project, which includes construction, A&E, and permitting, is $7 million. Third project we want to talk to you about tonight is the Auburn Park. This is the full build-out of the park, including 4 baseball fields, 2 multi-purpose fields with lighting, walking trails, several picnic shelters, playgrounds, and multiple bathroom facilities. It also includes right-of-way improvements along Route 8, as well as the access and parking lots. The current schedule, we have the site plan under the second review by county staff and VDOT. Our general services staff is coordinating with the designer on the building plans for the picnic shelters and the restroom facilities. And site plan comments will likely impact the actual advertisement date. We had, in the current schedule, it is has an add date of September the 25th, which again may be impacted by the site plan comments. It's anticipated this project would last about 6 months and could be completed by May of 2024. The total project estimate is $8.2 million. That includes the A&E services, the permit fees, the mass grading, which is already complete, and the construction of the remaining build-out of the project. And the final project we want to talk to you about is the Shawsville EMS facility. This project, we've worked with Michael Geary and Brad on scoping this project and have an architect and engineering firm on under contract to do the design. And we have reached the schematic design milestone for the project. The new facility consists of 11,113 square feet. 6,300 of that is office, training, and residential space, and 3 apparatus bays consisting of 4,800 square feet. We have access approval, the location of the access approval by VDOT. The architect and engineer is waiting on the county concurrence to move to the next phase. And currently, the projected advertisement would be spring of 2024. And the length of construction on this project is about 16 to 18 months. The current estimate of the project is $10.6 million, which includes construction, A&E, FF&E, fixtures, furnishings, and equipment, as well as construction, testing, and inspection. And here you have a couple of slides here that shows the current layout that I described to you with the 11,113 square feet of the 3 apparatus bays and the sleep rooms, training room, fitness room, and the day room for the facility. A couple of renderings for the consultant prepared for us. We have several examples to go by with different colors of exterior block and brick combinations that we've reviewed. And this is this view here, the upper left, is a view from 460, and then the view there on the lower right is from the rear of the property there. So at this time, I'll take any questions you may have.
Mr. Woodrum, thank you for the presentation. Okay, we will start off with Supervisor King.
I just, you know, during this year, Craig and I has met a few times, and on this Reiner Park, I was told, but more importantly, the citizens was told that park would be done by December the 31st of this year, and they could start playing next year. So I need somebody to tell me and the citizens what the holdup was.
You want to talk about the review process a little bit?
Sure, I can go through that with you. The consultant submitted plans back in the spring. That review time is 30 days. The review team submitted or responded with comments. The second set of plans was submitted in August. Again, they get another 30 days. I think I can't really speak beyond that, Supervisor King. I think there's been some attempt to try to accelerate some parts of the project with other contracting methods, but that vehicle doesn't fit this project. So
Thank you.
that's
That is a
really
good
all I
point.
have.
We were hopeful there might be a way using some cooperative purchasing agreements to be able to get a contractor that could move faster as well. That does not work for this project. A couple of other things, and this really didn't slow the project itself down, but we did take a look. We spent some time looking at the possibility of a field house facility on the site. The costs, even with a couple of rounds of looking, the costs for that facility still were over $8.5 to $9 million, and that is in addition to the number that Scott quoted you earlier. There's also, and candidly, there's also still a continuing discussion about the size of one of the baseball fields. It's my understanding the Parks and Rec Commission may be talking about that this week. I'm not sure if that were to change, how much time that would add. I don't know. I know we reached out to the A&E firm to see if they could give us any guidance, but
Yeah, I did hear back from them this afternoon. We had a call. It probably, depending upon if there is interest in increasing the size of one of the fields, there are pros and cons to each one of those fields to modify. 4 to 6 weeks of design time, but obviously there's some. Depending upon what, one field is much easier, but it costs more money construction-wise. One field is a little simpler to do construction-wise, but it's going to impact parking, picnic shelter, bathrooms. And so I think it's important to keep in mind that the stakeholders need to be kept aware of those changes that could occur with each of the respective fields and allow the opportunity for them to provide the proper input.
one of the things we've talked about internally too, and I know I think I've mentioned it to you, Supervisor King, too, is this is a generational opportunity for the county to build a park like this. I mean, we won't have anything else like this for a long time. And yes, it's been slow. Yes, I know that citizens are anxious to get this thing underway, but I think the process of making sure that everything is as it should be, Scott mentioned earlier, and I think the last conversation we had was the hope just a couple of weeks ago was that we would have it out to bid middle of this month, try to have a award and a ribbon cutting sometime in October. We're just not there.
Are they going to be able to play on it 2024?
The goal is to have it with the schedule, and this is what I'd heard even beforehand. The goal was to have it ready, hopefully spring being May of 2024. So the hope is, yes, it will be able to be used in 2024.
Well, let's do everything we can do to make it happen.
Yes, sir.
I got just a follow-up question on Supervisor King. The change to the ball field, was that in regards to, I think we had a couple of citizens come forward and something about the setup of the field, but I kind of took it as, well, they're just going to extend the bases, or that wouldn't take a long time to re-engineer.
It'd be extending the outfield.
It's extending the fencing at the outfield to make it a larger field so that if older youth wanted to be able to use that field. Currently, we don't have any rec programs that utilize that size field. Any events we've had, and Angie, correct me if I'm misstating this, I think any events that we've had through recreation, we've been able to use high school fields. But there was discussion about having a larger field. I know at the Rec Commission, there was some discussion, and my understanding was that at that point it wasn't something they considered. But I had a conversation with the chair of the Parks and Rec Commission. Apparently she's had some calls from a couple of citizens and said that she may want to revisit that issue with the Parks and Rec Commission.
I think they had speakers come to their commission, to their last commission
The
meeting as
same
well.
one that we had come here.
Right, I think that's correct. I think that we have not, through Parks and Rec, had to use any school fields. I think that our participants play on smaller fields currently. Is that?
We haven't fielded, Parks and Rec hasn't fielded a team that would need a larger field in a number of years. It's not that we have not made it available, it's that we haven't had signups for kids that would need the varsity size field for 7+ years since we've fielded a team of that size, or that age rather.
But if there's discussion from the Parks and Rec Commission about changing the size of one of the fields, that will cause the project to take longer to complete, because it would be time to move forward now with the current size of the fields.
It'll take time before we can get it out to bid.
Right.
I don't know how much it'll affect construction time, but
Right, but I think it's fairly tight now with the goal of getting it completed by the end of May so that kids can play on it in the summer of '24. So if that gets pushed a few weeks, it affects the turf side grass growing, so it could have an impact on that for the summer.
That's a good point.
So how far back do they set the fence? How far back would it have to go?
I should know that.
I don't know the
I'm
Is there a
not-
lot of grading that has to be done to make that
It
happen?
wouldn't necessarily be grading, it's just getting it into the slots, because it's a significantly larger field. It's a larger infield, it's a larger outfield, the fence is further back, various things are in different places.
Yeah, in all likelihood, and I see Scott moving there around, the two baseball fields that are, I guess, at the top of the drawing, there's probably one of those two would be the ones that expanded, but,
Yeah, I think currently there's 60 feet bases, and then if you went to the larger one, it'd be 90 feet. So think about that, 30 feet longer on each end.
Yeah, and then the outfield, I believe these are 2 or 250. Might have to ask Brad. 225. So you need another 75 feet in the
But
outfield.
with a field like that, we could have our own county team, right?
If people
mean,
registered
professional.
for it. Oh, professional, yeah. Board of Supervisors baseball
we
team.
can have an intramural, yeah.
I'm not, advocating for this or just to keep it the way it is. I'm just curious as to why that would take so much time to have it, and wouldn't it be good to have something like that in our Parks and Rec, even if we don't use it today? And I think Marty answered my question. I was going to say, couldn't it be used in the meantime in the smaller version? But
It can be. You can move the bases, it can be used, but then you're going to have the kids that use smaller fields playing in dirt. They won't be able to be in the grass.
Yeah, and you
So
have to
it can
adjust
be
them out.
modified for the smaller size field for the younger kids that are playing. I think probably my bias is showing, because I kind of hate the idea of, we have, I think it's 11 teams in Reiner, and I kind of hate the idea of making kids play on the dirt. when we don't have a team that would need a larger field.
But the citizen, he was wanting it because he has a team that would use it for games or for practice?
Not a rec sports team,
Okay, I see what you're saying.
not one of our teams.
Okay. Yeah, that's all I got. Thank you.
But y'all not having a meeting this month, right? Parks and Rec.
I'm going to defer to Angie and Brad on that. I have not heard that
One
it's
that has-
canceled.
I'll just share when Ms. Miller reached out to me, she said something about maybe having a called meeting this week to discuss this and get it settled.
Because it would normally be this Thursday.
Right.
I have it on my calendar for this Thursday. I haven't heard that it's canceled, but sometimes I don't know.
What I understood from Ms. Miller on Friday was that they weren't planning to have a meeting because Mitchell's out with a procedure and wasn't going to be available, but apparently she had talked to a couple of citizens and felt like it was something the Parks and Rec Commission needed to talk about and decide. And I told her, I said, well,
It's holding up.
Yes.
It's holding up the ability to construct.
Yes, we're ready to move.
So to make sure I'm understanding, you had, Mr. Meadows, you just said this is like a generational one-shot opportunity.
Well, it's a situation where we've got a large tract of land. We're building 2 large multi-purpose field, 4 baseball, softball fields, pavilions, parking. I understand the desire to get it built. Absolutely. Don't disrespect that at all. But I think the thing is, when you put it out to bid, you better make sure that what's in that bid is what you want to see out there for the next 10 to 20 years, but at least, because once you do this, it's hard to go back. It's not hard. It's expensive to go back and modify.
And currently, right now, we don't have any rec leagues, and we haven't for some time for that.
For at
would-
least
Larger
7
field,
years.
For the larger fields, that's right.
When we have had enough applicants or enough people register, I think it's U12 is the cutoff. Is it U12, Brad?
Before they move to the big field.
It might be U13. I'm not 100% sure. But if we do have a team that needs the varsity size field, in the past, they've used the high school fields.
If the high school fields are available.
If the high school fields are available.
So
And that's the
that's-
same for our younger teams. They're so limited on practice and games because of field availability. That's why Supervisor King is getting so much input from his district, because
that field.
the kids that are playing now barely get to practice. They barely get to play because we just don't have the fields to put them on.
And how much, since it's, I would rather do it correctly and utilize the potential for growth and to be able to offer that, but how much longer it sounds like this is going to be discussion to go in front of the rec commission, and then they're going to advise us, and then we kind
Sounds
of.
like at least 2 months before the
4 to
commission would
6.
even.
I didn't know that number till today because we hadn't heard. Yeah.
Currently, they're working towards, they're looking forward to receiving comments from the plan review team, and they'll be addressing those comments. They're going to be working towards completing the plans in accordance with this concept or this plan that you see here. This sheet actually is from the plans that are under review. So they're going to keep working on that until they hear something different. If someone chooses to say, hey, we want this larger field, there's pros and cons to looking at the various fields, which ones you would want to expand. But working through some of those issues may take 4 to 6 weeks. And so that would add another month to 6 weeks to, an add date, which I said a few minutes ago, could be impacted anyway by the plan review comments that's forthcoming. So, that's all.
So it could take up to 6 weeks longer.
Correct. That's correct.
to get it done? I
To
mean,
make that modification if the Parks and Rec Commission and the board. And what I'd suggest what I would suggest is if the Parks and Rec Commission meets this week and has a recommendation, then we'll pass that to you guys, because you really don't need to vote. It would just be a consensus, yes, we agree, or no, we don't agree. If you don't, I mean,
If Mitchell's going to be out, it's fairly unlikely that the Parks and Rec Commission will reach a consensus in his absence. So I don't want to,
Ms. Miller mentioned to me Friday she wanted to try to find a way to either have him by Zoom or by phone.
when he's out with a medical procedure.
That's what she said, but
I just, if there's a possibility in it, because what I'd hate for us to do this and then looking at the future and we expand rec and we already know we have several citizens that have spoken in favor of wanting a large field, what the cost would be to have to redo it if we, 4 or 5 years down the road. But I do understand the urgency that, just like almost all these projects, we've been waiting a long time. And frustration.
We've been working on this about 2 years longer.
Yeah. And,
Just for a field.
but I'd rather get it right.
I have seen one citizen request the field.
Did the Parks and Rec Commission get an email from another individual? There are 2 people, I think,
Names
that have
that keep-
spoken about,
Okay.
in different.
2 names that keep coming up.
So then there are 2 people.
There was the email come from the varsity baseball coach at Auburn. Came in to
The commission.
Brandy and
Right.
Parks and Rec, and she forwarded it to the commission. I think that was a couple weeks ago. And I think that spurred some talk amongst a couple of the commission members, maybe. That I think the points of his email were concerning the Auburn community and the lack of field space for not only rec age or kids that are aging out in rec, but baseball in general, from a middle school, junior varsity through high school. There are issues in the community, and as much as like we heard when we met with some folks in the Elliston area about lack of field practice space for particularly male baseball players after they turn 13. They really don't have a place for their middle school teams or their junior varsity teams to practice if they don't have lights on their varsity field. Auburn doesn't have lights on the varsity field, so their middle school team, they don't have a middle school team, basically. They have a club team, is what I've been told, that they travel to Kiwanis Park and rent that facility to use. So I think his point of view is more from a standpoint of it being for a community, the baseball community in Auburn, of having that resource, was his point. If I read the email correctly.
Anyone else to follow up?
I have other questions about the presentation, but not about this.
Any other comments or questions on the Auburn Park build-out? And so I guess we're just going to wait until the commission, Rec Commission, Parks and Rec Commission meets and then gives us some guidance.
I will be glad to, I haven't heard anything today from anybody about a meeting. I mean, Ms. Miller reached out to me and told me that she thought the commission should meet and discuss it. But
So how long are we gonna wait?
Sounds like we're still proceeding with planning and the site or the plan review.
so that's what I was going to say too. In lieu of any direction otherwise, it's full steam ahead to get this thing to bid. So, and you said, Supervisor King, I think you said 2 years. We actually had community meetings in 2018, 2019. So it's
Had them a couple years ago, and we're still sitting here.
Yes, we are. I know.
I'm not gonna mention no names, but right over here on 460 across from the Nissan store. They had plans. They got a restaurant already open. They open Friday in a few months.
Well, my only comment is, I sort of agree, like, we want to do it right, right? And just remember that the Animal Care and Adoption Center took 22 and a half years, but we did it right.
Yeah, but
Hopefully, we're not going to go that long for the park.
This has to do with Shawfield's part. Are we going to line up, if this goes through, for the bigger field? What about Shawfield down there?
I think it would, I think that is another conversation that would happen, because I agree, when I talk about this, I've talked about this being a generational park. I've talked about it being a signature park, in that it's really, it's going to be the best of the best that we want to make sure our other facilities are measuring up to. If you put a large field here, you're going to have a conversation about a large field in eastern Montgomery too.
Yep.
It's my understanding there's only one in the county, and that's at Quanah Park. Is that correct?
That outside of the school.
Yeah, outside the school.
Yes, sir, Kiwanis Park. There used to be one, and I think it maybe is still there, but it's hard to get use of. At the old Blacksburg High School,
Yeah.
there's a full-size field there, but I'm not sure what ended up happening with it. But outside of the high school fields, which of those, Eastmont and Auburn are accessible some, but they're usually really hard to get on. I know Christiansburg keeps theirs locked, so you're not getting on it, the softball or baseball field at all.
I was just wondering, out there at Auburn Elementary School, I know Parks and Rec uses that field in the corner.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we could work with the schools and build that one up. That would be closer to the schools if the middle schools used it. They could walk there.
That's been brought up as an alternative. I actually mentioned that to some folks of what about if that were an alternative to expand that field and make it into a larger field that's already on the campus, so they wouldn't have to bus kids over to the new park. I don't know the particulars of who owns the field, who doesn't own the field. It's just sitting there, like you said. Obviously, we're getting ready to build. If the plan goes through as it is, we'll have 4 Little League fields here, a Little League field at Motor Mile, and a Little League field at Plum Creek. So that's 6 Little League fields in the Auburn Strand. And if you count the one at the elementary school, that's 7. So maybe it could be a possibility to expand it to where it could be used for sports through the high school age.
If we could work with the schools and get that going, it'd be closer. I don't know how middle school, my understanding is they're going to try to get a middle school team together now. So that would be closer. The parents wouldn't have to get off work and take them down the road.
Do you want us to bring that up at the liaison meeting?
I think, there's an alternative that I offered out to people that were calling and texting me about it. But there's a field sitting there. Maybe you can work with the school system. I don't know the particulars of how that would get going, who owns the field, how the cost would be covered, but it certainly is in a position that it could be, I would think, could be expanded to accommodate what you want to do.
We can bring it up. Yeah, put it down on the agenda.
And to make sure I'm understanding, with this Auburn Park, is it of great cost just to do this one field bigger? Or is the cost it's going to be so much after it's done if you have to come back and redo it?
I think the question is, if we do it now, we do not have a cost to expand one of the fields right now. They're working on it, but I can't provide a cost of what it would take to make one of these fields larger. I just know the design time would be 4 to 6 weeks. There would be a design fee involved and a construction cost, obviously, to go to a larger field. I just don't have those two numbers tonight.
The short answer, though, is if there is a desire for a larger field, it would be less expensive to design it and build it now than it would be to build a small field and then 3 to 5 years from now come back and want to expand that to a larger field, because you've got to, especially a lighted field, you've got to move pole. It's quite extensive. So that's the urgency, I think, of getting this question answered once and for all, yes or no.
I think also examining the option of the little field at Auburn Elementary is a good path as well.
That's what I was probably getting to, is wonder, is it the same cost to expand either one, or is one going to be more cost efficient versus?
Don't know. Okay. Not necessarily.
If we done at elementary school, would they need lights up there too?
Well, that's one of the points that Mr. Altizer brought up in his email when I read it. Auburn's been pretty successful with their baseball program and softball program. I think they've won
State champs, right?
between the two probably 7 or 8 state championships. One of the issues he brought out in the letter is they don't have a field that has lights on it. So once they get past, I think it's districts into regions or past regions into states, they can't host a game, so they're having to go play at Christiansburg. And I think part of their thought process was it would be really nice if they could play in the Auburn community when they're having these state games, instead of having to go to Christiansburg and play at their field, because it's a VHSO rule, I guess, that they have to have lights on the field in case it rain delay or whatever. You know, they can't, they're so tight on the state championship dates that it pushes so far into the summer that they really can't cancel it and bring them back the next week. So I think his point was it'd be nice if you had a field with lights that they could play those games on and have those there in the community.
Thank you.
It'd probably be a really good idea too to bring up at the public school liaison meeting, lighting the Auburn High School field.
I just texted.
Because that's a total crossover.
It's okay.
That's not a Parks and Rec. I mean, it's a problem for Parks and Rec to consider, but it's a strange set of responsibilities attached to that. If it's a high school team, is it, who's responsible for lighting that field? It'd be great if we could work collaboratively to light their field, because it would be great if they could play at home.
Any other comments or follow-up for Auburn Park? Thank you, gentlemen. Well, no, Mr. Woodrum, you stay. We're not.
Don't go anywhere.
All right. Do we want to go around the room, or do we want to go by project and ask questions? Does that sound? By projects? Well, let's do that. That'll be easier. All right. Blacksburg Library, outdoor improvements. We'll start off with you again, Mr. King.
It's been a little while since I've been to Blacksburg Library. Is all this going to fit in there?
Based on this plan, yes. There has been some discussion about this easement right here. We've been doing the surveyor has been locating a storm drain pipe that crosses Draper Road. And this has kind of changed the way this wall fence feature has been placed on the plans. Another aspect of the project is to take out that parallel parking. I think that was intended to be a bus stop at one time. And so removal of that pavement and kicking that sidewalk out to match the sidewalk that's further to the lower right corner out of the screenshot there of the plan. So there's some additional sidewalk and curb and gutter that would be modified as part of the project that will give them some additional space.
Looks like it's going to be nice. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It is a nice addition, and I don't know if you remember what generated this thought for the outdoor space. It came up in discussions during COVID, as well as having some areas outdoors to have events and gatherings, and there is a pretty good lawn there that can be redeveloped into that. So
Plus all the children programs. I mean, they
Yes.
do lots. The library is not just a library, it is a community hub in all types of programs. Okay. Supervisor DeMonts.
On the library, can you talk us through what our timeline would be as far as like, do we have to get planning commission approval from the town? Do we have to get town council approval? It sounds like if we're taking out parallel parking, it's pretty
Yes.
complicated.
We've worked with Chris Lawrence at the town and their planning department. We've had a couple of meetings, and the consultant's been very, very helpful. I do not believe it has to go before town council,
So it would just be through like a building plan?
like a site
review?
plan.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a site plan and building. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
That shortens the timeline. Did you give us a timeline on this, an estimate?
Yeah, so
I
we're.
did not write it down, I'm
That's all
sorry.
right. We anticipate going to add in November or December this year.
Okay.
And probably take about 4 months to complete. So substantial completion, by late spring, early summer.
Next year, 2024?
Yes, ma'am.
And then this outside area, is this all pergola or is it any of it under roof? It looks
No,
like
this
just
is
a
all-
pergola.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. That was all I had on the library.
Very
You're
good.
welcome.
Supervisor Shepherd.
I was thinking about the parallel parking you're taking out. That parking lot that's on the lower side down next to the old police department, does the library utilize that?
Yes.
They do?
Yes, they do.
Okay,
There's 3 parking lots for the library.
that's all I have.
Very good. Supervisor Fidzikowski.
Well, everybody already asked all my questions. Thanks a lot.
Vice Chair Biggs.
I just really like it. Much needed. Glad to see it.
And I too don't have any questions. I know that there were some concerns or questions about the fencing and the height of the fencing.
Yes, ma'am.
I
We're
think
working through those with the planning department. The
Very
consultant is, yeah, they're doing a great job.
and we're very excited because there are so many excellent programs, and especially during COVID, but during summertime, and it's just a wonderful resource for the community. Any other follow-ups? All right. Magistrate and Court Service Facility. Start off with Supervisor DeMonts.
I don't have any questions about this one. Thank you.
Supervisor Shepherd.
The figure you spoke, was it 7 million something?
Yes, 7 million.
Does that take into account the demolition of the old building?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's all I have.
Supervisor Fidzikowski.
I don't think I have any questions on it. I think you explained it pretty well, Scott. It's something I think it's desperately needed, and will solve a lot of problems for not just our police departments and sheriff's office, but to kind of condense and put all of our eggs into one basket and kind of take care of, maybe use some of that other property to help offset. So I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. Supervisor King.
I have no questions. Everybody knows my opinion of this.
Vice Chair Biggs.
I just want to make sure, you said that probably it would take a year to a year and a half start. You would start in January or February? When were you thinking of?
Yeah, so this, about 18 months. This one will take about 18 months to construct, and likely would see a contractor mobilize sometime January or February.
Okay, all right, thank you, I like it.
And when we were just talking about some of the delays, this was in 2019 when I was first introduced to this need. And so with all these projects, it's good to see we're moving forward and through the pandemic. And I'm excited about this because public safety is our responsibility. Court services, and we talk about the top 5 responsibilities of Board of Supervisor of Public Safety, and court services are right at the top up there. And this will be, it's very efficient for our citizens. in all the court services. And as our population grows, this will be efficient with that population and those needs to grow for those services to grow as well. I don't think I have to tell this board how much mental health issues have increased over the last several years. And if you think about the court services and ECOs and TDOs and how that plays a factor at the magistrate, where it all begins with the magistrate's office and those services, I can see those needs growing. And of course, public safety and safety for our officers with that Sally Port is just something that is desperately, like Supervisor Fidzikowski said, desperately needed. And I will be so happy when these bids, you said we're going to go out October the 16th?
Yeah, we're in hopes to have it advertised mid-October.
Well, hopes, I'm going to be praying, because this is something since 2019 that we have talked about and needs to move forward. And just efficiency to put everyone in the same building too, so that for intake for juveniles, and I don't know if everybody knows that the regulations of you have to have separate for adults and the juveniles, and and in times of needs, if it's a domestic or those type of situations where you're trying to help someone work through the system, and now you got to tell them to go to another building, it would be so nice that it's all here, convenient, efficient, and gives us a space to grow for those services. So I'm very excited about that. Any other follow-ups?
Chair Blevins?
Yes.
If I might add, you've mentioned, the board has mentioned a few times tonight the time that it's taken to get these projects moving forward. I just wanted to point out that we have expanded our capital projects significantly in the past few years, and Scott really doesn't have a significant amount of additional staff. So the same number of people are doing a lot more work, and we are trying to move them forward. But when we need to manage so many large projects and make sure that we're doing them correctly and that they are for the future and that we're taking into consideration the vision of the county, it has taken a little bit longer than we would have liked, but we want to make sure that we're doing it right. And we have not really expanded the staff. So thank you, Scott. I know you've worked hard on these projects.
Thank you, Angie.
Absolutely.
I was
That's
actually
just
going to
echoed.
ask, we haven't hired a project manager.
We hired one additional person that is, we've never done this before. It's a new thing for the county, but they're a limited term employee to get us through these projects. But we just hired him a couple months ago.
In June, early June.
And doing project management for one $8 million project is a full-time job.
Yes.
So
Absolutely. And if I'm not mistaken, historically, we've got more capital projects going on right now in the county than we ever
have.
Yes.
And so, Scott, that's just a testament to you. That wasn't my comments about the frustration or delay, is not because I think this board knows how hard our employees and you work. And again, so many projects, just like Supervisor DeMott said, one person for an $8 million project is a full-time job. And here, you with maybe one additional person that we just brought on recently doing all of these projects.
Well,
So
our staff and general services all contribute to that, so.
absolutely. Well,
One or two
Fabulous
people.
team.
Yeah.
Have a fabulous team, and trust me, I've talked to Supervisor King, I've talked to others of you about, keeping these things moving, and I've used the phrase many times that don't throw anything at me, but it's better to get it right than it is to get it done. I know citizens want to get it done. I know staff wants to get it done. No, they get tired of me. I know Scott gets tired of my emails. Where are we on this now? What's going on now? But we're spending millions on improvements for our citizens for the future. And yes, we need to get it done, but we absolutely need to make sure it's what you need, what the county needs going forward.
absolutely, we need to invest in our infrastructure, and it sounds like we need to start investing a little bit, maybe in some resources
We
and
can
employees
definitely
too.
use,
It
definitely
sounds
use
like.
help. Yes, ma'am.
I mean, I know this is a little off subject, but when you think about all the projects and services that we offer our citizens and the demands that we put on our employees, maybe that's something that I know visiting our several departments, and I'm sure the board can give some testimony too, that when we go and visit these departments, how they're very grateful, but we can see that they're overworked. And that so those are things that we will want to make sure we invest in our greatest assets.
Thank you.
That are our people.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Shawsville EMS facility. We'll start off Supervisor Fidzikowski. He's looking directly at me, so we'll
Yeah.
come back to Mr. Shepherd.
This may take a while.
Okay.
Scott, you mentioned that cost on this have gone quite a bit up.
Yes, sir.
The number was,
Currently, it's 10.6 million.
and that is based on what? Just educated guess, or
Well, no, that was
somebody
actually,
crunched the
as
numbers?
part of the consultant scope and fee, they had a firm that estimates projects professionally. They do that. So it's not just an architect or engineer's opinion of probable cost. They send it out to someone that specifically does this cost analysis, and then they turn it back over to us. And so I think it includes site work, stormwater management, fixtures, furnishings, and equipment, construction testing and inspection, the whole gamut, 10.6 million.
Okay, and so that means if it was to be put out to bid, they still could come in less than that, right?
Or they could still come in a little more than that.
It is a best estimate, and one of the other things we've learned through the pandemic and now is projects, what we've said with all the numbers that are in the capital improvements budget, they're basically estimates and placeholders. And what we're seeing right now in particular are the costs are just, this one, I think the placeholder's 5 or 6.
4.7.
4.7. And, the first time Scott came back with the numbers, like, what? But
And you may recall last January, we talked about costs going up, and materials from 21 to 22 went up 18%. Labor went up to about 3.5%. Equipment went up some percentage. And then this past year, we've seen equipment costs go up, labor costs go up. Materials haven't went down. They've kind of leveled off, but they haven't went down. And so that's the things very seldomly get cheaper.
All right, and I see on the diagram on the right, there's some scratching over there that, is that an effort to bring the cost down?
No, this was looking at some alternative parking options.
Okay.
Eliminating this front parking here. So this was kind of a working drawing that I wanted to include so that you could compare that to the building footprint here that's highlighted in yellow. So that image you referred to is shifted to the left of the screen. And so it shows the access off of Old Town Road and the access there off of 460.
Now, the 460 access, I thought that was just an exit.
That's an egress only.
Okay, so it would actually make sense not to put parking spots in the front of the building to encourage people to go the wrong way on the on the exit. But all right, well, I was hoping that maybe there was some cost savings there, but if not, there has been, and I'm glad that we're here in a work session to discuss this, because there has been some talk about, well, what if we combined Shawsville with Elliston Fire and did some modifications to their building? I am against that for several reasons. The first one being that there's a public expectation that we're going to put a rescue squad back in Shawsville. I also kind of feel like in all the things that we've been through with paid staff and volunteers, I think that it may not be a good idea to kind of force them together like that, because they would have to share common areas. There's no way around it. They would have to do that. But I also think a facility in Shawsville kind of helps us with future needs. The county's growing. We're getting more people. They're filling in. They seem to be growing we don't know what the future's going to hold. All we know is that we're going to have more people because it's going to continue to grow. And I just feel like having a facility there would just make it more responsive. Now, I have asked Michael Geary to give me some information on the calls versus this location and against the Elliston location. And part of it, he's probably going to have to come up here and explain, is that they have kind of divided up Shawsville and Elliston. So it kind of gives you a picture, I think kind of a false picture, because Elliston gets more calls in their area, but their area comes right up to Rifey Street, which is where Creed Field is, which is about a football field away from where the new facility would be built. So to me, that's not a factor, but could you explain, Michael, where the general line is for that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Good evening, board members. So basically, the Shawsville and Elliston areas split into two different geographic areas. So when we get dispatched calls, depending on the address of those calls, they could be in the Shawsville area, they could be in the Elliston area. Over the last year, from July 1st of 2022 up until June 30th of this year, we were running 67% of our calls in the Elliston area, 33% of those calls in the Shawsville area. So historically, we do run more calls in the Elliston area than we do in Shawsville. To Supervisor Fijikowski's point, the line is, I can't say it's exactly at Rife Street, but it is pretty close to Rife Street on the straightaway. So anything beyond that to the east would be considered Elliston. That being said, both of those geographic areas are very large. In Elliston, you obviously have Ironto and Lafayette, where in Shawsville you have Den Hill and Allegheny Springs. So that's kind of how the data shapes up.
Thank you. And again, by putting the new facility right there on Route 460, I mean, you've got a straight shot to get to the further end of the county, the furthest eastern end. So to me, I would like to see it remain here. Another part of it is what would be done to make a combined building. I think they would need more bunk space. They would, and of course, I'm sure most of you know that there are repairs going on at Elliston Fire Department from just age and possibly maybe some bad engineering originally that wasn't thought of. And those repairs are being made, or we're moving towards repairing them. So the thought of combining them both is like, hitting two birds with one stone. But that, again, I think to me is a little bit deceptive, because how much could you build out that building? If you all have been there, when you're facing it, on the right side, you got Route 460. Behind it, you have a park. There's a county park there. To the left side, there's a grade drop, and it's quite a bit of drop there. So as far as building out with it, I think we're already running into issues. And building up, I think, would probably be just as expensive. And I know there's been some numbers thrown around combining it, and I think the last one I heard was about $6 million to outfit it. Does that sound right to anybody?
That's.
I know we haven't really.
That's not.
That is a guess.
That is correct. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So no, I look at all those factors, and even though the price tag has gone up on it, I still think it's in the best interest to stick with this plan and keep it. Now, have there been any scaling back of the plans since we started?
Yeah, we started. I think initially the scoping discussion was somewhere around 12,000 12,500 square feet, Michael. And then the consultant built the program and put the spaces and the shapes and everything together. And their pre-design concept was 13,000 square feet. And so working with Michael, we've tried to cut where we can, but keep the primary spaces intact, with the sleeping rooms being obviously an important piece of that.
Right.
So we've taken it to where we feel it's ready to run the next play and get into the design, the more detailed design with the mechanical, plumbing, and electrical part of the project.
And I believe that we're kind of at that point right now. I think I heard somebody said that we're going over the waterfall here pretty soon. So we got to make a decision which way we would want to go. And of course, I've thrown something out to you all that you probably haven't heard, and but it is something to ponder because it's a lot of money. So it's you have my reasons why I want to keep it the way it is, but I'd like to hear yours.
Steve, I have a question. Like, if we keep it there, how does that impact, like, what the foundation does with that area, you know, like in the summer and all of that?
It doesn't affect them because they hardly ever use that baseball field. When they have had requests, they have to have somebody come in and maintain it and get it ready. And so they tend to not use it at all unless somebody specifically comes to them and asks them for it. But as far as I know, they haven't had many people asking. And now that we have Creed Field, it really isn't that important anymore. So we have the fields down there. So
Okay.
and they're good with it. They've already given it their blessing. So
Yeah, that's a good point. Lauren Tate with, I still call it Meadowbrook, or Eastmont Community Foundation has indicated that they're very supportive of this plan.
Okay, go around Supervisor DeMont.
Can you skip back to the previous slide? I apologize. If I'm an ambulance, if I'm driving an ambulance and I'm leaving this facility, how am I leaving and how am I coming back?
All right. So if you're headed toward Christiansburg, you're going to make a right out.
So I would come out of the apparatus bay and take a right onto 460?
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm pointed that way.
Right. And then
Okay.
this is going to be a directional crossover that was approved with an access management exception through VDOT.
Okay.
And so this will be, emergency vehicles will be able to make a left out to go in the direction of Elliston.
So they would go left, and there's underneath the
Right there.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay, so
we
we
would
are all always leaving from that. That's always the
Yes,
exit.
ma'am, from the
Okay.
front.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I couldn't see the cut through, so I was like, I guess we're only gonna help people on the right. Okay. Okay.
I'm okay with that.
Hey. Okay, so then when people return back to the building, they're gonna come up Old Town and come in that back exit.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. That was the only question I had.
Very good. Supervisor Shepherd.
I don't have any questions.
Okay. Supervisor King.
Could you go back to the other slide? There you go. Up here in the, I guess it's on my right top corner here. I can't see what it says on here. Ours is blurry. There you go.
So that's a potential mechanical yard. So there'll be a generator, HVAC equipment, generator, and other HVAC equipment would be placed in that corner.
Well, it says potential, but you will need that, won't you?
Yeah. Yes, it's potentially.
Trying to cut costs anywhere we can, sir.
It's potentially a large area there, isn't it?
What's that covered?
So that's a covered patio
Yeah.
and the uncovered portion of the patio.
Now that's in with the bid, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, 'cause they're gonna need something so they can go outside and sit and
Yes,
enjoy the,
yes.
out down there while they're waiting on a call.
So this rendering's a little different than the floor plan here that you see that we've reached an agreement on with the consultant. This just shows, this lower right shows some form of a covered patio, but yes, all that would be included.
I mean, yeah, 'cause they need something while they're waiting on a call, they can relax and, I mean, they spend, 24 hours at a time? Yeah, they gonna need somewhere where they can relax and that is a drive-through bays, right?
Yes.
Well, I'm with Steve. I think we need to stick with this because Charlottesville deserves it.
Vice Chair Biggs.
I know, Steve actually answered my only question I had that came up. Thank you.
So let me make sure I understand where this is at. So Eastmont Foundation is supportive of this, and where would they hold their concerts? They're just going to have to.
Be in the same
football
location you see here
Oh,
in
I
the
see.
aerial.
It's on the other
Yeah.
side. Okay, I've got that. Okay, very good. Okay. Can you go back to the other slide real quick? The one with the. Very good. Looking at it. So I don't really have any questions. I think this board earlier, this year, I guess, or maybe it was last year, we said Charlottesville EMS facility was a priority. I think we said it was the number one priority.
Yeah, that is correct. I was going to mention that, and that goes back to at least 2018 or before. The priorities were Reiner Park, and then because it was when Gary Creed was still on this board, he said, as soon as that's done, I want a facility in Charlottesville.
Reiner Park, Charlottesville Rescue, Magistrate Building. Look it up.
We'll get there slow and steady with the race.
Yes. So I don't have any questions about this design. It looks like it'll be efficient. I know the county is growing. We know that there is a need. We know that Charlottesville does need this, and I don't have any questions. So I guess if you're looking for consensus of the board that we're moving forward with this.
Yeah, that'd be great, but sounds like I got it. I was going to add also that it's my hope that if we have an ambulance available, that we could still leave an ambulance over there on the Elliston side, if that's in the cards. But I'm not putting that out there as a must-have. But it would be nice if we had one there. And again, it's not something we may need now, but as the county grows and more houses are popping up, especially on the other side of the interstate. And I wanted to throw this out too for Vice Chair Biggs, that I asked Michael if he could cut out all the accidents on the interstate that we respond to, because I am a person, I'm in favor of putting it where it would do the most good for our people. And yes, we don't want to leave anybody stranded on the interstate if they need help, but help will be coming. But I want to take care of our taxpayers who are putting those buildings up, so I'll throw that in there too.
Yeah, I still wish we could get a rebate from the state for some of this, you know? Because we're servicing a lot of people that do not live here, that are in crashes.
Very good. Any other follow-up? Supervisor Shepherd.
I just wanted to say that I agree with Steve. I think we need to go with the building standalone.
I would just add to that he knows his community, so that we're looking to you to, you know your community and what they might feel, think, and need.
And I do appreciate the comments that Supervisor Fijikowski made. We are currently looking at improvements at Elliston Fire because there have been some challenges We also had a meeting a couple of Fridays ago with the chief of Longshot McCoy Rescue about some challenges with that building as well. And if we're going to continue to use those facilities into the future, we're going to have to spend money on them too. I mean, Longshot McCoy's got some issues. Elliston has had some challenges for a while. We're trying our best to get those addressed. But yeah, it costs money when you have buildings, for sure.
One thing I would like to add that's related to funding is we have appropriated a certain amount in the capital improvement program for these 4 projects. And the Shawsville EMS station is an example. We will wait until we get closer to getting a bid number, and maybe even wait until we get the actual bid number to come back to you and ask for an appropriation of additional funds before that can be awarded. But it serves us all better if we do it in that order. We have some estimates, and then we get the bids, and then we appropriate the additional funding. Because if we budget exactly what we think it's going to be, that's what the bids are going to come in at. And if we keep on this track of we have our best estimates, we have some placeholders that are what they are because of the time that they were developed, it will help us with our bids as they come in to appropriate the funding later.
And I think we all understand that those were just estimates and placeholders when we look at any of these capital projects, especially moving forward. And as we know, when we started back on some of these projects in 2018 and 2019, the times are changing and things are getting more expensive. And I think this board understands that. I do think it's fitting that we're talking about these capital improvements, especially this EMS facility, especially with it being 9/11, and want to again to invest in our first responders, and because they are that first line of defense for our citizens, and so we want to make sure that we have them well equipped in the facilities that our citizens deserve to have that response. Thank you, gentlemen. Did that cover everything?
Thank you for all your questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just add one
Certainly.
comment? I want to thank staff for getting this in front of us, and I like the fact that we're keeping it in front of us and we're receiving updates, because this is a big undertaking, and Craig finally got everything in one book. And so I'm really looking forward to the continuing updates.
Absolutely. Okay. All right, do I have a motion to come out of work session?
Motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Chair Blevins?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Okay. On to new business. Rezoning for Jeffrey and Jennifer Fraser.
I would make that motion.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Chair Blevins?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Next up, make sure I've got that. Schedule a public hearing for to amend the ordinance tax relief for elderly and disabled.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Everybody's going to second that. Motion and a second. Any discussion? Just like to say thank you. Again, it's a great opportunity for for the public hearing to move forward with this for our most vulnerable citizens as well. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Chair Blevins?
Aye.
6 ayes.
All right. Personal property tax decrease ratio to 90%.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Motts?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Chair Blevins?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Thank you, Board. All right. Establishment of the PPTRA for 2023.
Motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. Jakowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Demotts?
Aye.
Chair Blevins?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Okay. Opioid abatement funds and distribution requirements agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Jakowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Demotts?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Chair Blevins?
Aye.
6 ayes.
All right. Again, next National Patriot Day, National Day of Service and Remembrance on the 22nd anniversary of September 11th.
Motion.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Demotts?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. Jakowski?
Aye.
Chair Blevins?
Aye.
6 ayes.
National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month,
So
September.
moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
I'm just really glad that this is on here because I think that it's really good to have this awareness in the community. I think there is a lot more out there than we know.
Yep.
And that this impacts a lot of people. And it's something rarely talked about. So I think I'm glad that we have it out there.
I am too, to break that stigma that if people need help, we are here to help. Yes, ma'am. Madam Clerk, you'll please call the roll.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Demotts?
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd?
Aye.
Mr. Jakowski?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Chair Blevins?
Aye.
6 ayes.
All right. Reports. County Attorney.
No report, Madam Chair.
We're surprised. County Administrator.
3 things this evening. Had the opportunity to attend 2 events last week, a ribbon cutting at the CRC for the CoGrow Labs project last Tuesday. That was funded by Go Virginia funding, and the county contributed part to that as well. That's a great project. It was great to see a number of people there celebrating that event. Also, it was good to see several of you at the kickoff event for our broadband project in eastern Montgomery County on Wednesday. We had a really big turnout from several of our partners. Gigabeam had folks there, Appalachian Power, and we had a lot from the community that were there as well. It was a really nice event, and great to hear from folks about what an impact this is going to have in that part of the county.
Brad, you might want to mention what they said about this being sort of a model project. The history of all this was really impressive.
Thank you. Well, it is a model project, and we had selected, the county had selected Gigabeam Networks when we went through a procurement process, partly based on their ability to work with DHCD and others on collaborative funding. Appalachian Power has been a part of that as well, and we are a pioneer of sorts. Again, it's another example of hurry up and wait. I know, Supervisor Fidjakowski about every other week was like, when are they going to get this going? We had the State Corporation Commission. There were so many hurdles, but Dr. Tamara Holmes, who oversees this project for DHCD, was there, and she was very complimentary of the teamwork and effort, and it is a reality, and it's going to get done. But thank you. It was nice to hear the kind words from folks. Last thing I was going to mention is the Onward NRV annual dinner is this Thursday, and I know several of us are attending that as well, so that'll be great, and I'll recognize the Deputy County Administrator to see if she has any remarks.
I have 2 items. One, you took action on an opioid abatement authority resolution earlier. I met with a group of locality administrators and also provider partners on August 30th for the New River Valley Ecosystem Project. That's the project that we received grant funding for through the Opioid Abatement Authority. You'll be hearing a lot more about that. It's an exciting project, and it will really help our community. And then I have some good news to share with you. We had many very good candidates for the Deputy County Administrator position, and I'm pleased to be able to announce that Chris Lawrence will be joining us on October 16th as our new Deputy County Administrator. Thank you.
All right, Supervisor Dumont.
Congratulations, Angie, on picking Chris Lawrence. I have known him for a long time and have always admired him greatly, so I know that he'll be a great fit for Montgomery County. So that's really exciting news. Unfortunately, I will not be at the Onward NRV annual dinner. That is the same night as the League of Women Voters and NAACP Board of Supervisors Forum. So I have a previous commitment. I'll be here. But please do extend my, I've spoken with Katie and let her know how sorry I am to miss it. As all of you know, I sit on the board of Onward NRV. I'm the treasurer of Onward NRV, and I certainly would be there if I was able. So I'm glad. It is also a re-election year, but I am glad that that Montgomery County will be well represented. The next board meeting on the 25th, I believe. I am trying to make plans to be present over the phone. I will not be in town. So just giving you guys a heads up that I would like permission to be able to participate over the phone for that board meeting. I'm lobbying a little bit. Please say yes.
Yes.
Please say yes.
Absolutely.
And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Shepherd.
I don't have any report. Choked up.
Supervisor Fidzikowski.
Well, last Wednesday was a busy day for me. As Craig has already mentioned, the broadband kickoff. We had a lot of questions answered, and a lot of folks showed up. I think a lot of people were surprised how many people showed up. Every seat was taken, and plenty of people standing around. So it was a very good turnout because this is a very big issue. But I think it kind of falls back to what several of you have said tonight about if we're going to do something, let's do it right. And to have that opportunity where we were ready to go forward with Gigabeam and have the fiber to the wireless system, and we were going to settle for that, and then just to have Appalachian Power come in and say, hey, no, we'll partner with you too, and bam, we have the Cadillac of internet connection. So the people in my district are really looking forward to it, and I guarantee the people in other districts are too. And unfortunately, they're going to have to wait a little bit longer than we are, but progress is being made. They answered a lot of questions that folks had, and I had, quite frankly, about how the connections were going to be made and about when. And of course, timing is something we've been discussing tonight. It's a tough thing to accomplish because as soon as you start going forward, somebody digs a hole in front of you and you got to fill it in before you can move. But after that meeting, I scurried on, of course, obeying all speed limits, down to Franklin County, and I met with a group down there of like-minded boards that would like to see more money come from the state as it relates to, number one, paving our unpaved roads. That is one thing I think even David Clark has mentioned to us several times, that we used to receive quite a bit more money, but then when the rules were changed and everything shuffled around, that dwindled down. So now when we want to pave a gravel road, instead of getting it done in 1 year, it takes us 3-4 years to get one road paved. And we have many of them on our list, but I was surprised to hear how many our neighbors have. Franklin County has got a lot. Floyd County has got a lot, more than us, and so does Bedford. But we are going to kind of get together, and we have some plans to make some contacts, probably starting with VDOT to get their opinion on it, because you might think, well, why would they want to talk to you? You want more money from them. Well, no. When we pave a road, we save VDOT having to go out there with their motor grader and scrape it 4 or 5 times a year or whatever is required. So it's actually in their best interest, too, that we get more money for things like that. But we're also looking at, the secondary road money, too, which is a little bit trickier. It comes from the telecom taxes. But neither that nor the 25 million statewide that they put out for and that's why we get so little. We're splitting it between the 100 or so other counties. That's, it hasn't been looked at for over 20 years. Nobody has made any changes to it. And we've been discussing how, times have changed and just our building projects have gotten more expensive. Well, same thing with roads. We need more money for our roads too. So we're going to look into it. It may be a uphill battle, but if we don't start somewhere, we're not going to get anywhere. So I'm kind of looking forward to it. And they asked for volunteers, and I raised my hand foolishly, and a couple other people were coerced, and one was just flat out drafted. So we've got a good group of people. We're going to try to move this thing forward. So maybe more to come. That's all I got.
Very good. Supervisor King.
No report.
Vice Chair Biggs.
I think I told Angie to please give my regrets for the dinner too, because I'll be here Thursday night. But I wanted to personally thank Steve for going down there last week. That was an idea that came up at the VACO regional meeting. That's why regional meetings are important. That's why everybody needs to go. And so April and Craig and I were there, and I really thought it was a good idea. Not that I really think maybe it will go somewhere fast, but we all know how things go. But I think it's a good idea to get as many people together and make that push, because I think they forget about us a lot. So thank you, and thank you for volunteering to serve on the subcommittee too. And I don't really have a report, anything else to report. I will find out tomorrow at the airport meeting about the RV lot that took the brunt of all that rain on Saturday. And as you might not know, you probably do know, that the airport, actually the Virginia Tech Montgomery Executive Airport, makes money on the RV lot. But one of the problems is if it have a lot of rain, sometimes the RVs get stuck in there. And so I'll get a report on that. And there was a lot of plane activity that got delayed with planes going in and out, but they had a lot of planes. So maybe I'll find out tomorrow how that all went. And that's it.
Very good. I just want to do a huge shout out to Volunteer Montgomery. I participated with their annual Patriot Day, where we recognize and honor all of our first responders with goodie baskets and homemade goodies throughout the county. And just a huge shout out to those volunteers. They make all the goodies, collect all the donation, make the baskets, and they're just a wonderful group, and we're so appreciative. And we all, of course, appreciate all of our first responders, especially today being Patriot Day, as we're so thankful for all that we have. Want to say quick congratulations to Chris Lawrence. He will be a great addition and asset. The town of Blacksburg might be a little bit upset, but he will be a wonderful asset to Montgomery County, so we welcome him.
I talked to the town manager this afternoon. He's not too upset.
Okay, very, very good, very good. And then just want to report, just a couple weeks ago, I had the opportunity to attend, was invited to our Attorney General, Jason Miraz's first ever Human Trafficking Summit in Richmond, and it was very informative. I don't want to say it was good, because it is very sad. And it's sad to think that we do have human trafficking, and just making sure we're looking for signs, and that if you see something, you need to say something, especially here, Montgomery County, access to Interstate 81, colleges nearby. And of course, we talked about just a lot of anti-trafficking groups and how we could support and fight that. And together we can hopefully eradicate human trafficking in Virginia. And we look forward to, at some point, having some possible training here, even in Montgomery County, for that, for Southwestern Virginia. And with that being said, we're adjourned. Thank you all.